all, and welcome to another exciting episode of Down Home Dirt, the show where we dive deep into the journey of entrepreneurship with those who took the plunge and all the ups and downs that come with it. I'm your host, Desta, and today we are joined with Royce with Honor Roofing and Construction. Thank you for coming out today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm super excited to do this interview. I want to learn a lot more about the roofing industry, and you're my man.
There you go. Well, I hope you're in for a ride because there's a lot of things we could go over.
It's definitely a journey. I had my roof replaced a couple years ago, and I only learned like a smidgen. And the reason why is because I just chose not to learn. I was like, just do it. Whatever needs to do it, right? But as I'm growing as a homeowner, I'm learning that there is more to it than just do it. You know?
Yeah. I mean, some people can ride like that, their whole life and not care, just have the guy do it. But most people like to have some vested interest in things that they call home. So makes sense.
No, absolutely. And then that kind of came whenever I had a home inspection done about 3 months ago, and they were like, you have a wave. And I was like, so I have to know more than I know? Okay, good to know.
It was like you said, a wave in the roof. So it was like it kind of like rising up in a couple areas.
Yeah. I had it checked out and it was fine, but it was like that, the home inspector was trying to tell me that the different ways, and I was like, don't get technical with me right now. Just say to call the guy. I got it.
Well, just to make you feel better, the waves that you see, that it typically has to do with the rafters and how the house is settling, and it's purely cosmetic. It won't change the effectiveness of your roof, so you have nothing to worry about there.
I appreciate that because I was like, ocean waves, I know that much. But let's start with you telling us about yourself. Like, where are you from and how long have you been in the Triangle?
Well, I've been in the Triangle since about 5th grade, so I've been here. So almost all the important things have happened in Raleigh. So with that being said, I grew up here. I'm not a true native, but I'd like to consider myself. It's just easier because I moved around a lot. Jesus. I moved around a lot when I was a kid. So, I was in Virginia, Florida, Missouri before I ended up here. But like I said, I've been here the longest. So, this is where I learned how to drive. All the major, important times of my life basically happened here. This is what I remember. So might as well be considered from North Raleigh at this point.
Same with my kids. We moved from Florida to here when they were like 8 and 10, and this is what they know. So they're adults now.
Yep.
But I understand that. So let's jump right into it. What initially drew you to the roofing trade, and how did you first get started in this?
So roofing just kind of fell in my lap, funny enough. So before I got into roofing, I sold building materials. So a combination of working at Lowe's for 2 years as a sales specialist there and spending some time at ProSource Wholesale, which is a distributor for a wholesaler for flooring, countertops, cabinetry. So, been selling building materials for about 3 years at this point. But wasn't really happy with my current my position at ProSource. So I started looking around, and the craziest story, as I'm sure you're aware of, like through BNI, it's actually a BNI story, which I like to tell people because it's a crazy story, to be honest. So, my girlfriend moved here. Or moved down here for an internship about 3 years ago. That's when I met her. And she only planned to stay for 6 months. She met me and, stayed longer. So it's kind of my fault to blame for that. But her brother's fiance, Stephanie, she owned a business, and that was where she was at the internship. And her business partner was Caitlin Honor of Honor Roofing now. So I've known of Caitlin and Cameron. They're the owners of Honor Roofing and Construction. I've known of them for like 2-3 years at this. But when I started working at ProSource, I met Caitlin in person at one of Stephanie's birthday parties, and she was like, "Hey, why don't you stop by my BNI and check it out, see if it works for you?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not? It's a networking event." So I go check out her BNI, and then I meet Kyle, who was a flooring installer at that BNI chapter, and obviously I sold flooring, so me and him hit it off for a while there. So me and him came pretty close. I met his business partner, Richie, as well, from BOG Flooring. So shout out to those guys. They do really good work. But needless to say, I started working with them a whole bunch, and then at a networking event with Kyle, I was like, hey, I'm not really happy with where I'm at ProSource. I'm kind of looking for something else. If anything happens to come across your way, just let me know. Just kind of looking out there. And then literally that day, Caitlin posts in her BNI group that they were looking to hire another salesperson. So at that moment, Kyle's like, hey, I don't know if you know Caitlin. I'm like, wait, I have this person in my contacts. Like, I know who this is.
Oh, that's
So
small world.
I messaged them. I'm like, hey, with regards to, you guys are looking to hire or whatever. And I was like, yeah, dude, let's talk about it. And so you're like, sure. So literally that night I had coffee with Caitlin and Cameron, talked about the position. They saw whether or not if I was going to be a good fit. And then at that point, it's just history as far as me starting to work with them. So started work with them about 2 weeks later, and been with them ever since. So that was about like a little newer to the roofing side of things, but I've learned a lot in the last about 6 months. So that's how I got to roofing. It was through BNI, and so it was cool to experience that through the networking stuff. And I thank BNI for the job I currently have because I really enjoy it, and I plan on utilizing that as a tool for future. So.
That's a great thing. We talk a lot about networking. Honestly, networking will get you in the door where as education may not. So that's really great that you have that story to tell us. Go
Mm-hmm.
networking.
Yeah, networking is fantastic. I've met a lot of really cool people so far during my networking journey, and I appreciate the time and effort that people do to put these things together because it really means a lot. And the referrals, word of mouth, all of that means a lot when you're trying to grow your book of business. And the fact that that has played a story in not just me, as far as doing business with people, but the fact that it also landed me a job is awesome.
No, absolutely. And that's great. That's actually how I got started was in BNI, and then I moved around to a couple of different other ones. And if it wasn't for that networking, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now doing this podcast because I've met a lot of people that way. And I think that's fabulous. So shout out to networking.
Yep, for sure.
Can you describe a particularly challenging roofing project that you've worked on and like what made it unique and what did you learn from the experience?
So I would say, as far as like roofing being challenging, I would say at the end of the day, it's not really challenging with regards to like difficulty level. I'd say roofing's actually relatively simple, but it's not easy. That's where the difference comes in. So like, I mean, there are situations where that I've experienced so far where, whether it's like a real estate transaction or trying to repair somebody's home, at the end of the day, it's like the challenging things that I come across is that when people aren't ready to have this kind of issue.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are not, financially prepared to deal with a large expense, and a roof replacement is a large expense. Even some repairs can be kind of expensive depending on what the issue is. And if the insurance route doesn't really work out, a lot of these people are put into tough situations, and that's a interesting thing to try to navigate, where you're trying to help them out, but obviously still try to do business with them. So that can be challenging at times. And unfortunately, in the roofing industry, there is a lot of what I would consider like bad actors or unethical business practices. Whether it's people trying to fake storm damage, which is somewhat common, or just not being fully transparent with the customers on what's going on or what's actually available. Because some people are just like, oh, yeah, you got to replace the whole roof, so this is what's going to be, versus potentially offering a repair. Maybe a repair makes more sense, and maybe I give the customer an extra 2-3 years before they need to replace the roof. So that's part of the reason why this business was so successful as it started off, because that was one of Cameron's core principles, is making sure people have all of the options in front of them and they can do what's best for their situation.
That is amazing. I love hearing that. That is something that I feel like in the trades that we would the honesty and the transparency and
Hmm.
educating your client because you don't want to just be that guy that goes up there and they're like, oh, just replace it. Let's go. You want them to know
Yeah,
why and how to look for it
correct,
in the future. So that's really great.
correct.
So how do you stay updated on the latest roofing materials and technologies and how And how have advancements changed in the industry? Sorry, that was a lot to say.
No, you're good. So as far as like staying up to date, I mean, there are like workshops that manufacturers provide often where, basically they invite you to one of their things and they kind of show you about all their products. So that's probably one of the best ways to stay updated as far as like new technology and stuff that's coming out within the roofing industry. I will say that like the roofing itself has not really changed much over the last couple of years. I will say there's been a lot of the changes are coming from like how the process of doing roofing is done versus actual materials involved, because like shingles haven't really changed much in the last couple of years. It's relatively the same, but give you a good example is, so most people aren't too familiar with roofing. There's basically two kinds of shingles on the market. There's 3-tab, which kind of looks like almost like bricks, as far as the pattern that it gives. And then there's architectural shingles, which obviously don't have that pattern. It looks kind of random as far as the way the shingles lay on the roof. 3-tab shingles last 20 years. That's what their engineer lifespan is. Architectural lasts 30 years. So the changes that I see are not necessarily from the product itself, is the shift from people that are installing roofs or insuring roofs mainly. Like their insurance companies are stepping away from wanting to insure 3-tab roofs and really only wanting to insure architectural roofs, because from their perspective, why would I want to insure something that lasts 20 years when I can insure something that lasts 30 years? So a lot of the replacements and stuff that we do are basically exclusively architectural. The only time where we put 3-tab shingles back on a roof is if it's a situation where there's like a tree fall and we're trying to match the rest of the roof that we're not replacing. So that's a good example. One advancement that they have made in the last 20 years is 20, 30 years is the introduction of copper granules on shingles. So I don't know if you've ever seen like an older roof where you see those like kind of water stains where it kind of looks like it's like stains. That's actually technically it's mold growth or some kind of bacterial growth on the shingles. It doesn't really damage anything. It just doesn't look great as far as that perspective. So with the introduction of the copper granules, copper is an antimicrobial, just the way the electrons work with regards to how to interact with bacteria. Basically just strips all the electrons on the outside of exterior bacteria and causes them to die, which is what it is. So with the introduction of the copper granules, that streaking that you see on some older roofs is pretty much gone. So if you are looking at the kind of roofs that we would install, they're technically called antimicrobial shingles. So that's, I guess, one advancement that they've made. I guess technically they started making these like metal shingles too, but they're kind of expensive. I wouldn't necessarily. I mean, if you want them, sure, they'll last a lot longer than a regular shingle, but you're gonna be paying like 2-3 times as much to cover the same amount of area.
No, that's great. That actually explains a lot. There's this house that I used to clean in a neighborhood, and they had like a actual metal, like copper roof situation. And I thought it was just so interesting. And I was like, I have never seen that. I'm from Florida, and they have I don't know, they look like
Like the
shells.
terracotta. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I was like, oh. And then a friend of mine used to live in Arizona, and she told me that they didn't replace roofs out there. They just put another one on top of it. And I was like, that's interesting. So apparently roofing is different everywhere you go. Now I'm learning that.
Well, I mean, like, yeah. So, like in Florida, the reason why terracotta roofs are popular there is because I mean, they get battered by hurricanes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So they're a lot more expensive. You still find shingle roofs down there, but like if you want something to last a long time, then you're going to get one of those. And like with those, they're a lot more expensive to put in initially, but you don't have to worry about that near as much as a shingle roof. Because like a shingle roof through a hurricane, good luck if you still have half your shingles still on there. So it's a lot more expensive up front, but you'll benefit that over the long term. So going back to like other types of shingles that I see in the Raleigh area specifically. So shingles are obviously the most important. I'll see metal roofing as well. You see that's more popular in like rural areas. And then like the higher end roofs, there's the wood slat roofing. I don't know if you've
Oh
seen those
yes.
before.
Those are so
Those look.
pretty.
I personally like the aesthetic of those a lot. I think they look really
Mhm.
good, but they're also expensive. They pretty much give like a lifetime warranty. They're supposed to last like 50, 100 years, something like that. And then there's the Lamborghini of roofing, like the slate roofing, which is basically very similar to the terracotta. So it's basically you're putting rocks as your roof. You get these, pieces of slate that create the roof, and those are like it's like that outlive the wood in the home, to be honest, as far as longevity of those things. So but you're also paying for it, so
Mhm.
there's most definitely a cost versus benefit. But if I had the infinite money and I'm putting a new roof, it'd probably be a slate roof. Just because I know I wouldn't have to worry about it pretty much ever again after putting it up there.
No, absolutely. I agree with you. Like I said in the beginning, I had my roof redone, and he came up to me with a couple of different options because I had insurance that paid for it, and I was just like, "Uh, the black one. I don't know. Like, just pick one and put it on there. Like, so this is great. I'm starting to learn more about the things that I need to know. Being a homeowner is stressful.
Oh, I bet.
It is. It's been a journey, and I got to be honest with you, I learn a little bit more every day. Like last weekend, I went to go outside, and I had put, don't judge me, okay, an Amazon door handle because it looked pretty. And I go out the door, and the thing just bust open. I can't get the door open, and I'm like,
Oh man.
so I go to Lowe's, and I'm just standing there, and I'm like, oh, I have to figure out what goes there because I also needed to replace the weather stripping. Thank
Hmm, hmm.
God that that is universal because I was just standing there going, So this homeowner thing has been fun. I'm just gonna say that out loud.
Well, I mean, I would say as far as being a homeowner, I'd say there have been situations more often than not where unfortunately we have to come behind somebody and fix things that they tried to do initially. And being in that situation kind of sucks because like you already tried it and then you mess it up. I made the same mistake trying to fix that with my car the other day. Ended up having to take a shot and take it to the shop and spend a lot more money than I intentionally would have had done if I just taken it to the shop to begin with. But at the end of the day, it's like, all right, you're if unless you are a professional in that field, it really does make a difference to just have somebody that knows what they're doing come out and take a look at it and make sure that you're making the right decision with regards to your home. Because aside from like maybe changing out a dead outlet or something like that, they're especially when it comes to like especially the roof side of things or like plumbing, if you do something wrong there, it's not just like it can be a much bigger problem, as far as
Yeah.
like a leaky pipe will it could cause thousands of remediation problems, especially if you don't know what's happening, right? So yeah, it most definitely pays to get somebody that knows what they're doing, to take a look at, especially if you're truly concerned about it. At least get a recommendation. Yeah.
No, absolutely. I agree with you 1,000%. There's a very few things that I will fix on this house myself, and the door was one of them, and that's as far as it goes. The rest of the time, I'm calling a professional. I ain't doing it. So moving on, what are the most common misconceptions people have about roofing and roofers?
I think the biggest one has to do with how claims work, with working with insurance. So I'll give you a common example. Somebody calls in and is like, "Hey, I'm trying to get my roof replaced because all my neighbors got their roof replaced and insurance paid for all of it." It's like,
Yep.
they kind of like, I want to be a part of that, right? So they call their insurance and they get somebody to come out there and take a look at it, and it's like, all right, cool. Well, you don't. Uh, this is just an old roof. We're not going to help you out. Thanks for filing a claim. Let me increase your premiums. It's like like
Yes.
that is a common situation and it sucks to be in. I don't know why people when they have issues with their homes, because like think about it this way: if you have a leaky pipe or a water line breaks or something like that, who do you call first?
Not my dad.
Not your dad, but it's a plumber, right? You call a
Yeah.
plumber, somebody that can stop leaking immediately. I don't know why, but when something goes wrong with the roof, who do people call?
Their
Insurance.
insurance company.
Their
Yes.
insurance company. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. I don't know, like any other issue. If your electrical outlets, flashing lights, you're calling an electrician. If your plumber goes bad or something goes wrong with that, you're calling the plumber guy. If something like all the other areas of the house, for some reason, the roof, people call insurance first. I don't know why. That's just the way it is. So my recommendation to anybody listening would be to, if you have an issue with your roof, call a roofer, because they will be able to decide for certain whether or not it makes sense to get insurance involved, because insurance only pays out for storm damage. If you don't have legit storm damage, you're just filing a claim for no reason, and unfortunately that's going to follow you around for the next 7 years. Even if you decide to change insurance companies, all that stuff is public information. So if you just file a claim for what you think might be storm damage and it's not, then you're just helping insurance companies abroad charge you higher premiums. So call a roofer first, have them take a look at it, and get their recommendation on it. Now, that is kind of like a double-edged sword, because you also have to trust the guy that you're bringing out to do that, right? So do your due diligence, make sure that it's a reputable company, because I guarantee you, if you think there's suspected storm damage, most roofers will come out there and be like, yep, sure is. Let's go ahead and get her going, So, that's kind of the stigma that I've been fighting since I got into this industry, is like trying to be truthful with somebody with what's actually happening on their roof. Like, hey, I know you called me out here for storm damage, but this doesn't really look like storm damage. This looks like an aging roof. And if you were to be filing a claim, I'm not going to, your odds of getting an approved claim are pretty low. And I would caution against that. So that's the biggest common misconception, is how insurance process works and what I think the best process for dealing with issues with your roof.
No, I agree 100%. I just have a little fun story. So I had gotten my roof replaced because I did actually, a hailstorm came through, right? And so I had a roofer I trusted come out. He looks at it. My neighbor had their like extra roof. I don't even know what it was. It was like a weird aluminum like porch thing that was added to it. It was flipped and it was in the backyard. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And it sat out there for over a year. And the reason why is because they called the insurance company before they called the roofing company. And they had to sit with that. And then they had to pay to have it replaced out of their own money. Then they had to sell the house because they couldn't afford it.
Yep. So,
and I was like,
yep.
No.
Call the roofer first, guys. You do it for every other issue in your house. Call the roofer first. You'll save yourself a lot of time and energy in the long run, because it may just make sense to just repair it, or do something along those lines. And in that case, like as a roofer, I can give you documentation as to what's going on with regards to, like, for example, in that case, having the front, porch roof be sitting in the backyard. If you could have gotten emergency tarping, you could have done other things to, limit the damage that not being there could have caused. There's a whole long list of things. And then, of course, with them being documented and them being a company, when insurance comes out, even if they did something to fix it, you should have everything that you need to, approach the insurance company with like all the tools and stuff. And like, hey, I had it looked up by a roofer. Here's what they saw. Here's their report. This is what I got going on. They did emergency tarping. That stuff. It's like, okay, insurance is like, all right, this person's pretty serious about what's going on, because what you don't want to do is not emergency tarp it and then have to deal with water remediation or damage from missing things like that, which costs the insurance company more money versus you taking the initiative to fix the problem, at least even temporarily, before you get insurance involved.
No, absolutely. I agree with that. So safety is a critical in your line of work. Like, can you share some of the safety protocols that you follow and like why they're important?
When it comes to getting on roofs, obviously can be scary. And here's a couple of the tips and things that I've learned so far. So there's like alligator clamps that you can sometimes like woodworkers use maybe to clamp things together, or whatever you want to call it. So if you're putting your ladder up against a gutter, you can literally clamp your ladder to the gutter. So if once you get it up there, it makes it kind of difficult if there's a gutter guard, but just by doing like that, you don't have to worry about your ladder falling away from you or getting stuck up there without a way to get down. And it also makes it a lot more sturdy. So when you're getting on and off the ladder, again, you don't have to worry about the ladder really moving that much. So that's a simple thing that you can do. As far as like, flat roofs are a lot safer, obviously, but if you have to go on something steep, the safest thing is to get what almost like a foam pad is the best way to put it, kind of like a couch cushion almost. But when you're working on a shingle roof, that foam pad will grip the shingles like no one's business. And as long as you put your center of gravity or weight in the center of that foam pad, you're pretty sturdy as far as like being comfortable and not like worrying about sliding or doing anything like that. Always take extra caution when you're on older roofs, because the granules that are on the shingles become loose, and
Mm.
sometimes it will. I mean, imagine like I don't know if you've ever like slipped on like a gravel slope or something like that. Once those things start rolling, it's very similar, just a lot smaller scale. And older roofs can be a lot more dangerous to climb on. And at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, these are tips, but like consult a professional to go on the roof. Don't, like, it's not worth it. Like even myself, if I don't feel comfortable, I have a drone. Right, I can just send a drone up, take pictures that way. If it's something super steep, because like I even myself, if the roof's too steep, I don't even go on it. It's not worth it. Because like when we if we have to do a repair or something, we're going to bring out materials and safety equipment to facilitate that. But doing like an inspection, if it makes more sense to send a drone up, drones have kind of changed that because I can do a lot with the drone and not have to physically be up there, whether it's like super tall or super steep. I can just as easily send the drone up to get the pictures and videos that I need and share those with you versus having to physically be up there. The only exception to that would be if you have to do a repair. Because and in that situation, obviously you're going to have to go up there regardless. But it's that situation. There are other safety things like getting a harness and securing yourself to the other side and making sure the rope goes all the way over the roof, and there's other safety procedures. But like if you're thinking about doing all that, just get somebody to do it for you. It's like get one of us, or somebody that a roofer that you can trust that follows those things, because it can be dangerous. And depending on how tall or steep the roof is, like it is not worth, even if you're trying to like put something like Christmas lights up. like they're like somebody like, I can do that. Well, yeah, you can do that until you can't, and then that's going to be a very short story. So yeah, don't do that. It's not worth it. It's not worth it.
No, it's not. I hire out for that. Not it.
Mm-hmm. I
I know a
mean, like
guy.
even if I don't get, even if I'm not comfortable doing something, I would much rather come down and be straight with the customer and be like, hey, your roof's really steep. I don't feel safe. I'm gonna send the drone up, see what I can do with that to figure out what's going on. But with regards to doing anything, I'm not going to do it right now. I'm going to wait till we can get some, because like I have basic stuff with me when I'm doing inspections. I don't have like the full basically contractor set up for doing repairs. So I do what I can at the moment, but at the end of the day, if it makes more sense for us to send the official repair crew out, then that's what we're going to do.
No, absolutely. So, how do you assess the condition of a roof, and like, what are some of the red flags that homeowners should look out for?
Well, I mean, the easiest thing that you can notice from a homeowner's perspective is a missing shingle. Um, that's relatively easy to spot. Crease shingles are a little bit tougher. You have to know what you're looking for. But the crease shingle is basically one that has been, due to wind, been flapping, right? And it gets a crease line. It's if you know, like it's relatively easy to spot if you know what you're looking for. Um, but that is the beginning step of a missing shingle, because that flapping action will eventually cause a large enough crease to where the wind will eventually be able to tear it off, because it weakens that spot. So yeah, missing shingles is the easiest thing to spot. But with regards to like the aging of the roof, like it's kind of hard to just like look at a shingle and be like, oh yeah, that's how old it is. There's
Yeah.
a couple other factors, like southward facing roofs age a lot faster than northward facing roof, because the sun is terrible. It will beat down on things a lot harder than you would expect. So there's a couple situations where we've done insurance claims where we only replaced the south side facing roof because the sun had done enough damage to that where it basically aged way faster than the north side. So that was like a partial claim situation. Um, so that's something. Keeping your limbs from trees, if you have tree cover, keeping them off the roof from, because during high wind situations, those branches kind of scrape across the roof and cause damage. And, it might just look fine sitting up there, but you know, making sure that you keep that stuff trimmed and well far away from touching the roof is another good thing that you can do to extend the lifespan of your roof as well. But as far as like figuring out how old it is, I mean, hopefully you have some builder documentations to know exactly how old your roof is. But if you have a 3 tab, 20-year engineer lifespan. Expect those guys in okay conditions, which is what I would consider average, to last anywhere between 15 to 17 years. So that's kind of like that time where you start seeing issues start to prop up. Architectural is like 25 to 27. Um, yeah, so it pays to do architectural shingles at the end of the day. If you need to do a replacement, like the cost difference is like 5 to 10%. So you're paying just a tiny bit more to get almost double the lifespan. It's worth it every single time.
That's amazing. I did not know that. So I'm gonna make sure that my next house I pay attention to that.
hmm Even you see with, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was saying, how do you manage client expectations, especially when it comes to like budgets and timelines?
So, I mean, as far as budgets and timelines go, obviously we have like a lead time for larger projects like full installs or large repairs. And we try to work around it by, just being straightforward, like, hey, our expected install date is tentative, depending on what's going on. Because one thing that our business has to kind of work around is storms. If it starts raining, we're not replacing your roof during the rain. It's way too dangerous. The conditions are not good. And then we also have the added problem of getting the inside of your house wet as we're taking things off. So you have to allow some amount of flexibility when it comes to scheduling, roofing repairs and things. Just because we're kind of at the whim of the weather being. With that being said, we have smaller crews that do repairs. So depending on how big the issue is, like I myself, when I'm doing inspections, I'm trained to do small repairs. So if it's something that I can knock out within like 30 minutes to an hour, I typically come back down off the ladder and be like, hey, customer, this is what I found. If you want, I can fix this right now and we can, be done right here. And that's something that, as far as being, a salesperson, it's great for me to be able to offer that service because I know one thing that's kind of hard to navigate is like, all right, well, I figured out what the issue is. We'll schedule you 2 weeks from now. And then you as a homeowner is like, well, what if it rains between now and the next 2 weeks? And then you start like thinking about, well, what's going on? So being able to like go up there, come back down, hey, this is what it is. You want me to fix it? Yes. And then just be able to do it right then and there. It just makes a big difference. Cause most of the time with leaks, it's just like a small thing, whether it's like a pipe boot issue or maybe just like a nail pop or whatever it is. Maybe just need to throw some caulk in there. Most of the small leaks are relatively easy to fix on the spot. So being able to, me myself, be able to do that on the spot is huge.
Fabulous. I know you see me leaning down. My little dog is being very needy right now, so I just want to apologize. I'm over here trying to make him feel better. He's whiny. So, how do you balance the physical demands of roofing with the business aspects of it? So, for example, like you have to go out and you have to do the inspection and the repair, and then you also have to schedule if they need a whole replacement. And then don't you also deal with the insurance aspect of that as well?
Well, every situation is different. Some things take a lot longer than others. I mean, like with appointment situations, I usually like my first initial call is trying to figure out what the problem is and figure out how much time I need to. For example, if I know that it's like a leak in there, in a bathroom, that's like most likely a pipe boot issue, right? So I kind of schedule myself the allotted time. I usually minimally schedule myself like a 2 hour window working with a particular customer. That'll give me time to figure out what's going on, um, potentially do a repair if it's something I can take of right then and there, and still have enough time to travel to the next appointment. Right. So I usually try to space it out, like I said, every 2 hours, 2.5 hours, somewhere around in there, just to make sure that I can give each person that I talk to the time that they deserve as far as, making sure they're treated well. I don't want to be that person that just shows up after 15 minutes. You know what? I ran out of time. I got to go to the next appointment. Good luck as far as that stuff goes. No, I want to be able to give each person I talk to all the time that they need to make sure that they're confident that we'll be able to provide the service that they're looking for and making sure they're taken care of. And as far as doing larger projects like working with insurance and things like that, I've got the skills and knowledge to navigate that. And those are typically longer term projects because as far as getting a full install, for example, I mean, first step would be like, hey, I need it installed. Typically, you find out after a storm, you find some shingles on the ground, something along those lines. And unfortunately, you call insurance first because that's what everybody does for some reason. And then, um, worst case scenario, they immediately file a claim like some insurance companies do. And then we're brought in after the fact because insurance companies, most often than not, it's like, all right, well, this is what you got going on. Time for you to find a roofer. Let me know who you like. It's like they don't really help you with that process either. So then it's back to you to find a roofer to figure out what's going on. And then when you already have check in hand from the insurance to replace a roof, um, that's where that's like technically every roofer's like dream client is like, I already have the money, I just need to do my roof, and they will literally say anything to try to get them to choose you, right? So, and most of the time they just, especially with insurance, they're basically trying to maximize the amount of money they can get off insurance, which is perfectly fine. Because at the end of the day, like, I'll just give you an example. Let's say insurance company approves $10,000 for a roof replacement. Well, you got company A that says they're going to spend $10,000, or company B that says they're going to spend $9,000. Well, at the end of the day, minus your deductible, the only person you're saving money is the insurance company. You don't get to keep the extra.
Mm-mm.
You basically spend it or don't spend it. So, for us, like, we focus on quality and making sure the people that we use to install roofs are well taken care of. Like we're not the cheapest guys. If you're trying to find something cheap to get done quick and fast, you know, that's not necessarily, we might not be the right fit for you. Right. But, on the same vein of things, like if you already have check from the insurance, like getting the best quote possible that take advantage of the money that's in that claim, that makes the most sense. So like for us with our typical process, we usually give customers a good, better, best on a full roof replacement. Most roofing companies out there they'll just give you one quote. This is how much it is. Yeah, take it or leave it, right? We give a good, better, best because at the end of the day, like I approach every single customer like I have no idea what their situation is, so I'm going to treat it like I do every single other person. I don't know if they have the money or not. I don't care. I'm going to give them, what our business is about and what our service is, and if you want to use us, great. I'd love to sit down and have a chat with you. If you're looking for the cheapest guy to do it or get it done, we're probably not that person. But you have to ask yourself, why are they cheaper? What corners are they cutting to make that roof go up, right? Because like we install roofs like we would on our own home. We're doing, because there are things that aren't required by code, but I feel like are really nice. A good example is drip edge. It's not required at all. Most new home builds do not have drip edge installed because that's a corner that can be cut, that doesn't cause any issues short term, that you don't have to do. It's not a step that's necessary, but over the long term, pays dividends. It's basically this little metal piece that goes underneath the shingle on the edge and overlaps the gutter, and it protects your fascia. Yeah, yeah. So if you have that, that's good because that it protects your fascia from like getting wet during rains, and more often than not, if you don't have that drip edge installed, you'll eventually have wood rot on your fascia from the moisture hitting it after extended time. So small little things like that, like we're going to install that. That's standard, right? And making sure that ice and water shield is installed all over the place. Now, that's basically stuff that protects against like ice and water around like areas like valleys and around penetrations like pipe boots, for example. Those are some of the most common things that we're coming back behind other people and fixing, where they didn't put ice and water shield around penetrations or valleys. Unfortunately, the most egregious offenders of that particular step being skipped is new home builders. And it really pays, especially if you're getting your home built, to pay some kind of third party, whether it be an inspector or a professional in the field, to come by during their respective steps of the process and make sure that things are being inspected throughout the whole process. Because once the shingles go on, once the drywall gets put up, you have no idea what's on the other side. You don't know. There's no way to know. And the only way to find out is to tear apart the whole place, basically. So if you're getting your home built, make sure you got people it's super important and crucial that you get every step of the process inspected by somebody, because once the drywall goes up, once the shingles get laid, if there were any problems on the other side, you're not going to know until it's too late.
Absolutely. And this is a perfect time to plug in our sponsor, the Home Inspector team, because they have a new construction bundle. And that is one thing that they do is they do every step of the way, making sure that everything is great. They're the ones who actually came out and inspected my home as well and gave me a full comprehensive report that was easily shared with contractors with photos and explanations. It was great. So I agree with you 100%, making sure that this whole process is being inspected. That's perfect. So what is
I really, I really teed that one up for you, didn't I?
You did. You didn't even know it either.
That's funny.
That was great. So, what advice would you give someone who's considering a career in roofing? Like, what skills or traits do you think that are essential?
Well, I'd say it's not for everybody. From what I've gathered, basically 1 in 20 people make it past the first 3 months.
Oh,
It is a super high turnover. The people that stay, it's very few and far between. You really have to like it. You really have to like the process, and you can't be scared of heights and putting yourself on a roof. Because, like, it's one thing, a lot of companies kind of rely on door knocking. And unfortunately, that's an unfortunate, stereotype that we have. Now, I will say door knocking can be effective. I've done a little of it myself. I'm preferring to uh, utilize my network to generate business, through the networking side of things. But at the end of the day, like when you're first starting off, you don't have that, and it can be really tough to get that ball rolling. Now, if you're in a position like myself, where, and this is why I'm grateful, as far as, my boss Cameron is concerned, he basically kind of gave me like a slow entrance into the roofing world by starting off as a production manager. So with that, that's like a hourly paid position that I was able to do, and I was managing installs for roofs and repairs. So I was able to really quickly learn about what's actually going on, and on top of that, I have basically a consistent base that I can utilize while I'm learning how to do roofing sales. So I would try to find a company out there that does something similar. They get you started on some kind of base that you can rely on, because a lot of the companies out there just throw you into the water and be like, hey, it's straight commission. If you sell a roof, you'll be making much money, and just all you got to do is knock, 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 knock. And it's like, oh gosh, that makes it not for everybody, right? Not everybody has the courage and willpower to get told and the door shut in front of your face, 100 times during a day. That takes a lot of patience and courage and what's it called? I'm having a blank. Anyway, you get the point. That makes it really tough, which is why a lot of people don't say. But if with the support system that I have working at Honor Roofing, it's like, I feel like it would be a way higher percentage of people that would stick around if they had that level of support when they got in the door. But most of the times, like if you try to do like a onboarding situation with, some of those bigger roofers, it's like, all right, well, here's your packet, here's your information. All right, go knock some doors and let me know if you get something, right? It's like really just drop you off in the deep end and hope you can swim. And that has caused that turnover to be super high. So yeah, there's a lot of things that need to line up, and having making sure you find the right team to start off with is the best way to do that. Making sure they are interested in your success, and I most definitely feel that way over here. So, and that's part of the reason why I stayed versus moving on to something else. So, but yeah, it's you have to be a people person as well. You have to, because this is a people business. It's sales. You got to be able to communicate with people and develop relationships and have that stuff grow. A lot of this business, a lot of the consistent business comes off of referrals. So if you aren't that, call it extroverted of a person, and that stuff is difficult for you, I would also probably stay away from roofing.
or all
um,
sales in general.
or all sales in general. Yeah, that's a pretty common thing for sales. You got to be able to talk to people and enjoy that. But it's hard to find a good, trustworthy, and find somebody that has integrity, and then have them also be good at talking to random strangers, and also be good at and okay with getting on a roof. Like it's just a small subset of a subset of a subset of people that are cut out for roofing. But it makes all the difference if you can find the right support team and manager and company to work with makes the biggest difference.
No, absolutely. I agree with you on that. I had a friend, this was like years ago, and he lived in the Triangle area, and that was his sole thing. He got a job working for a roofing contractor, and he had to go out there and he had to knock on all the doors. And he's like, I don't understand. Like, I need to make money. Like, I can't just be doing this. So I was like, well, like, what if you, I don't know, something like postcards or something ahead of time and was just like, hey, I'm in the neighborhood. I exist. I might come knock on your door. So we tried that for a little bit and it worked out well for him. But
Hmm.
it was one of those things where he was just having a hard time making the money because unless he was selling a roof, he wasn't making anything. And he
Yeah,
would knock on many of them, many doors, and be like, nothing.
it's small little things like that, like sending the postcard ahead of time, and there are strategies that can make door knocking a lot more effective, but it takes time for you to sit down and figure those things out, and that's why it's got such a low success rate. Is because most companies let you figure it out on your own, and you got to figure it out for yourself. And if you can't make it work, then you're struggling, and it's very difficult. And that's why with my experience and Honor, it's like, all right, well, he basically from day one is like, hey, you gotta, if you're serious about doing this and growing your sales, we need to get you in like a networking group like BNI. He had success with that. If you want to do door knocking, which you can do, let me walk you through the steps and what I found successful, what the things to say, how to avoid confrontation. Like, he sat down and worked with me all this stuff. In fact, my first like month or two working with him, I was literally just shadowing him, walking around, seeing what he does on a daily basis, versus just getting dropped off in the deep end, and having to figure it out for myself. So it was literally like, here, dip your toes in with me, see if you like it. And this is the thing that I do on a daily basis. And it was really cool. I got to, you know, my like second day on the job was when was it Ian hit North Carolina, I think, or something like that. And it had, most of the storm had just passed, but it was still raining. And I was like second or third day driving around town with him, and we went to a customer's house, looked at the leak, and they're like, we want you to fix it right now. So of course, I'm with him going up on the roof, and while it was raining and trying to fix this lady's roof, in the middle of that storm. And it was like, wow, okay, cool. This is kind of what it's like. But it just kind of drove home. It's like, we're here. This whole business is about helping people, right? You have people that are desperate, can't figure out this issue for themselves. Because like that lady was not going to get on the roof and do it during the middle of that storm. No way. But in the case that she had, her like living room ceiling fell through. There's water like pouring into the home. Like how else are you going to stop that? Stop that from happening. And it was like a situation, like she came home from work and it was like a disaster. It was like, wow, okay. Obviously she was freaking out. So it's like, well, what do you do in that situation? Well, you call somebody and do like an emergency tarping, which in that case is kind of what we, there's no other way to do that. And you just kind of wait for it to dry out and, come back when it's not storming and try to fix it then. But yeah, it just kind of drove home the fact it's like, all right, there are people out there that have issues and we're here to try to help them. And at the end of the day, being honest and trustworthy and, having integrity when dealing with people. I mean, they're inviting you to your home, their home. This is their nest egg. This is their place. And that is like the most important part of their life typically. And you got to treat it with the same level of respect. Um, like you would your own home, because, this is their home. This is their livelihood. And it's unfortunate that there are people out there that take advantage of that.
No, you're absolutely right. And that kind of is concerning. That's why you've got to evaluate who you're having. And sometimes, and this is just my own personal advice, don't just go with the first guy that shows up. Evaluate at least three. And then that way you can get a better idea of like what you're dealing with.
Absolutely. I even recommend it to other customers. Like, hey, have you got other quotes from other people? I would at least do that, And for me, like the fact that I'm willing to say that just kind of shows me like, yeah, I'm not worried about what other people are going to say, because I stand behind the business that I have, and I stand behind the ethics that our business provides to customers. And it's like, if you get from other quotes from other people, that's fine, because I know what the kind of business that we have and this what we stand behind, and I'm not concerned at all. And that's the kind of person that you would want to work with, because like whether you work with me or work with not, I'm already busy. Like I'm not hurting to do your roof. If I do your roof, it's not like I'm dying for the commission or whatever. It's like because at this point, with the network that I have and the people that I'm working with, they know when they call me that what kind of level of service that they're getting provided and the kind of care that they're going to receive when they work with someone like us. And that just it makes it so much easier to do things because I'm not hurting to fix your issue. Like I said, if you want to do somewhere cheaper, that's fine. Go ahead and do something. Like that's your decision. It's your home. I'm going to allow you to do that. I'm not gonna harp you on it. You got to do what's best for you. If you think going with a cheaper person is the way to go, then that's fine. But when the issues happen 6 months, a year down the road, you're not going to be calling that person back. You're going to be calling the person that you probably should have went the first time. You know, it sucks. It sucks when that happens, but it's just a reality that some people got to find out the hard way.
Absolutely. I do my company. I always tell people, like, get some quotes, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not the cheapest, but I am the most thorough. So, and then those people end up going cheaper and then calling me anyway. And I'm like, it's okay. I'm not going to hate on you. I'm going to be
No.
like, I appreciate the fact that you went and gave someone else business. Good for them. I'm happy it worked out better with us though.
Yeah, my arms are always going to be open for you. So if you decide to come back around, sure, I'll help you out whenever it makes sense. So.
No, absolutely. So do you want to shout out where everyone can find you? What is your Facebook, your website, your email address?
So my personal phone number, if you guys have any issues, it's 919-264-7131. If I don't pick up or get back to you right away, it's probably because I'm on a roof or working with somebody already. So my voicemail says that if you have any questions. My email is Royce, Royce, at honorroofing.com. If you want to check out our website, it's honorroofing.com. If you check out our reviews, I'm pretty happy about this. We have yet to have nothing lower than a 5-star review. I think we're getting close to 100. We've been in business for about 2 years. We're locally owned and operated. We're also a woman-owned business. Caitlin is the head owner. So Caitlin, Cameron, they're the owners. So if you see them, those are the people. They're my bosses. We're a small business. We've got about 4 people on our team as far as like doing the sales and things like that. Of course, we have the contractors and stuff that do repairs and full installs. But we're a locally owned and operated, woman-owned business in North Raleigh, but we do service the entire Triangle and Greater Raleigh area. So we'll go as far south as Fayetteville, Fuquay, north as Durham. We'll do Wake Forest, Rollsville, up in that area, Smithfield and south. Like we'll go all over the place. Basically, like, if it takes 2 hours to get to the center of Raleigh, that's our radius.
No, that's good. I love that because I feel like my business personally is just in Clayton and I want to reach out and get into all of the Triangle. So I love that you cover the Triangle.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us and some wonderful tips and tricks. And my dog is saying bye. He's down here. He's fine. Climbed up on my chair. Stop hitting me. He's smacking me. It's dinner time. Duh. So I'm gonna
it is 5 o'clock.
I'm going to go feed my dog, and I do appreciate you. Thank you so much. And I will link all of your information in the below with the episode so that people can get a hold of you.
Mm-hmm.
You guys can join us for another exciting episode of Down Home Dirt. We'll see you next week.
One more thing, or my Honor Roofing is spelled HONOUR. So if you're just listening, make sure you got the U in there.
Absolutely. All right, guys. We'll see you next week.